Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for tonight's Preservation School class on the New York City Public Design Commission. Our 2022-2023 Preservation School series is featuring classes with representatives from New York City agencies. You can learn more about these agencies' missions and how they engage with historical neighborhoods, buildings, and sites. In addition to these classes on city agencies, we have a class on how to become a tour guide on May 24th and how to do an architectural survey on June 5th. More information on those classes will be available on our website soon. Tonight's class will be recorded and posted to our YouTube channel for free viewing. You may also watch all of our previous Preservation School classes and virtual tours on our YouTube channel. In addition to Preservation School, HDC has several other events coming up, including a virtual tutorial with Urban Archive on April 19th, our Six to Celebrate launch party on April 20th, a virtual presentation on the red caps of Grand Central Terminal on May 2nd, and our annual preservation conference on May 20th. Please check out our website, hdc.org, for more information and to sign up. If you have any questions about programming, you can contact me at marbulu@hdc.org. I want to thank the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, City Council, and the New York State Council on the Arts for supporting Preservation School. Now I will hand it over to PDC Executive Director Sreoshy Banerjea to lead tonight's class. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. I wanted to firstly introduce myself, but prior to that, just trying to get back to the first slide. I'm here as the Executive Director of the Public Design Commission, and today I will tell you about a bit of our mission, our jurisdiction, the way our public hearings work, how we overlap with projects in historic districts, scenic landmarks, and individual landmarks. We have a lot of jurisdictional overlap with LPC. And then also, I will hand it over to my teammates, Juliana and Mary Beth. They will walk us through City Hall history. City Hall is a triple landmark building. And then, of course, we have archives. Juliana is Director of Archives, and she can go through how you can access this wealth of information. So I will begin. And today's agenda, I will go through PDC, the mission and the jurisdiction. I will walk through a bit of our prior year in a snapshot. There's a lot of data we capture on the number of projects we review, who submits them, typology, etc. And then I will do a brief presentation about our strategic initiatives. PDC has an interesting bird's eye view of a lot of city agencies' capital projects. So often we're in a position where we can do thought leadership, best practices readouts, and creative policy and placemaking. Next, we will go through PDC public meetings and the process for public testimony. I will walk through how PDC projects are reviewed when they're in historic districts or within scenic landmarks. And one example I can take us all through is last December, the Gate of the Exonerated came to our commissioners and was voted upon. And then I'll hand it over for City Hall tours and archives. So let's begin. And if you have any questions while I keep going, you can put it in the chat. I will take 15 minutes of questions towards the end. But if anything is pressing and not making sense, please drop it in the chat. And Michelle, if you wouldn't mind flagging it for me if it's relevant to the topic, that would be great. All right, so about us. PDC is the Public Design Commission, and it's actually located in the third floor of City Hall. It's in what used to be the caretaker's apartment. Currently, it's also known as the attic, and it's a very unique and beautiful space, and encourage anybody interested to visit us, just drop us a line. I think it's very much of a great metaphor for our bird's eye view because, you know, as New York City's design review agency, the Public Design Commission has jurisdiction over permanent structures, landscape architecture, and art proposed on our over city property. And the mission is to really advocate for innovative, sustainable, and equitable design of public spaces. And all of our projects are across all 5 boroughs, so we definitely want to ensure an equitable review of all projects that come to us. The commission is made up of 11 members who serve pro bono and meet once per month to review and vote on projects submitted by city agencies. And members include an architect, a landscape architect, a painter, a sculptor, and 3 lay members, as well as representatives of the Brooklyn Museum, Met, New York Public Library, and there's also a mayor's representative. And staff, we are 7 of us. We assist the commission members in helping them understand the projects that come forth and have a monthly cycle where we do review and then present to them before it comes to a public meeting. So stepping back again, this is the org chart of the entire city agency family. And down here is the Public Design Commission, and we are under the Deputy Mayor for Economic and Workforce Development, which currently is Deputy Mayor Maria Torres Springer. And most of the projects we review are actually under the Deputy Mayor of Operations, which is Deputy Mayor Sreoshy. So this diagram is to just say that a lot of agencies touch design, right? And we are one component of many. And often what I find is that PDC has a very interesting role in breaking down silos and trying our best to connect the dots amongst various agencies. So whether it is parks that submits to us, or DOT or DDC or EDC, sometimes they all submit similar typologies. So we have a really important role in ensuring that there's consistency and also best practices that can translate across agencies. So this is another diagram from the HPD Neighborhood Planning Playbook, and it's about all the different agencies that affect the design and implementation and maintenance of a street. So we are off here as a constellation because we see this in our submissions and we are able to opine on it based on what we know about all the different agencies and all the different players that can actually do the planning and implementation and maintenance. So going now to the kinds of projects we review. So we see historic artwork and monuments. Sometimes there's conservation of these monuments. Sometimes there's requests for new monuments or removal of monuments. That comes to us. We look at structures, and structures are defined both as buildings, building facades, structures as place structures within scenic landmarks, and structures are also sometimes infrastructure and smaller things such as what you see over here. We also look at master plans and infrastructure. Even though a lot of the water, aqueduct, and other infrastructures are in the state, they're also still owned by the city. So that is still our jurisdiction. So another image I wanted to share with you is just kind of the evolution of our commission from 1926 to last year, actually 2022. We have to take a new photo because we have some commissioners that have now changed to new positions since there's a turn of the administration and it's expected to be new commissioners. But you can see how the diversity has increased and there's a lot of representatives from various aspects of life. So, and also representatives of geographic locations. And this is the Public Design Commission, our org chart. Just so you know, we are a team, a passionate group of individuals that are very skilled at public realm review and in the processes of the Design Commission. Most of them have been there for over 5 to 7 years. Juliana for lots more. I will let her introduce herself when she talks about the archive. But it's really helpful for us to look at all the projects that come to us. We see about sometimes 50 to 80 to 100 projects in very high intensity periods a day. And these group of staff members are key to ensuring that the commissioners get all the information they need to opine on projects once a month. So the list of commissioners and are below. There's also a conservation advisory group, which includes professionals in the fields of art, conservation, preservation, and history who volunteer their time to provide guidance to the PDC on art conservation and preservation projects. And similarly, to expedite the review of projects with limited scopes, we have another special advisor who we often reach out to. So now I will just take you through some data that is from the annual report in 2021. Before I get into the number of projects, I just wanted to share a brief visual. So there are lots of different city agencies, and they all run in a typical capital project schedule. There's design procurement, where you get the consultants on board. There's the design period, where there's conceptual review, preliminary review, and final review. And this is where PDC really fits in. We look at projects at this design phase. After we're done approving it, it can go to construction, procurement, and into construction. And then we also look at the final sign off. We look at photos. So as zoom in of this complicated diagram, I'm happy to answer questions later, is how we try and fit ourselves into a traditional schedule. So our overview, our kind of review isn't an extra step outside of what projects are already going through, but it's kind of streamlined so that it fits within ideal timelines in a typical project schedule. Of course, with new procurement methods like design build, we have to evolve and think about how best to fit our schedule within that, but it's generally very much a collaborative interagency effort. So the number of submissions by lead agency in 2021 was 611, and 611 projects came to us, and this is the breakdown of who submitted it. So DPR is the Department of Parks and Recreation. They're typically the agency that submits the most projects to us. Then there's DDC. They manage and submit capital projects on behalf of other agencies, including Brooklyn Public Library, New York Public Library, Queens Library, Police Department, the Department of Correction, and the Department of Cultural Affairs, amongst others. And then there's DOT, EDC, and a DEP, and a variety of different agencies, as you can see in like the left side. And then the number of submissions in 2021 was 813, out of which 41.8% was parks, open spaces, and streetscapes. 46%, the largest was structures, and then artworks and signage are also something we track. And one of the things that I like to highlight is that we review 95.9% of our 316 projects in 2021 within one cycle, or I mean 2 or fewer cycles. So a review cycle means the time between the deadline for submitting to the PDC and the time the commission takes to approve it. So that is something that is incredible, because we see so many projects, and to work with our commission to approve these large numbers of projects is requires a really well-oiled machine behind the scenes. So the number of projects and submissions by borough are outlined here, and it's really well distributed. Lots of projects in the outer boroughs. And now I will get into our strategic initiatives. So when we're not doing design review in the monthly cycle, there's a lot of special initiatives and thought leadership. So we can use our unique role in government and our bird's eye view of capital projects as an asset for other agencies. And we really wish to build strategic external partnerships to scale our impact and help the city innovate when it comes to public realm projects. So a lot of the role that I've taken on when I started as executive director last June was to help do more conversations across the industry to help demystify what PDC does, and also let the public know of our value, and then also promote public design and excellence within the fabric of our city. So one of the things that we published last year is Streetscapes for Wellness. This is an example of the kind of best practices document and advocacy tools that PDC has published. It's a result of a 2-year collaboration. You can find this on our website. And there's an upcoming open house policy talk, May 3rd, I believe, and you can register for that too, where we will have DOT commissioner, parks commissioner, myself, and all the different participants that led to this publication come and speak to the public about kind of how policy is created and how that results in public realm improvements. So Streetscapes for Wellness, highly recommend reading through this important document. And this is the policy talk that will further dig into what the content is. One of the things that is really crucial for PDC is to help build partnerships with external agencies that can spread the word of the kind of important work we do, and also to describe it in layman's terms and demystify how the city functions and who it serves. And the aim is to really break down what seems like complicated policy measures for broader audiences to help the residents understand the administration's priorities and how public sector investments are improving the city's resilience, vitality, and opportunities. Then another specific exciting project that we're working on is restarting our annual awards for excellence in design. Because we see so many projects across all agencies, historically, PDC has awarded each year projects that are exemplary and advocate for innovative, sustainable, and equitable design. And this is something that hasn't happened in person since prior to the pandemic. So we're really looking forward to restarting this. Since 1983, it's occurred, and it recognizes the numerous city employees and consultants who dedicate, their time to design, public design. And the winning designs are voted upon by our commissioners, and they range on a variety of different scales. And we publish a booklet as well. You can see past design awards and the booklets on our website. And the main goal for the award-winning projects is that it, advocates for innovative, sustainable, and equitable design and improves the public realm. Another thing that we will get into more details closer to the end is our City Hall tour program. So one of our strategic goals was to restart the City Hall tours after the pandemic. And we did that last August. Mayor Adams joined us alongside artist Kamal Ware, who has a very special narrative that he does as part of City Hall tours, which talks about the behind the images that are up on the walls, all the diverse narratives and the diversity of people involved in the creation and history of our city. And we recently also published a film called Epicentered, which is linked on our website, which shares this history, this almost untold history of City Hall, and celebrates the diversity of our city. So I also highly recommend watching that. One of our mission and visions for the tour program is to expand it to include the narrative and histories of underrepresented communities and include diverse public programming. So we've done a couple of these things already. We've released the Epicenter video tour. We are looking at how to continue walking tours and looking for fellows to help conduct research. And Mary Beth, our lead historian and tour lead, is here today and will talk to you more about City Hall, the tours available, and how to get involved in that. There's a huge impact for this tour program. Approximately 250,000 people visit City Hall each year. Approximately 60,000 people visit our website each year. And the PDC's volunteer docents led several tours for several visitors. And we also partner with Open House New York to recruit more volunteer docents and are working on that right now. And we're the only city hall in the country that is dedicated to telling stories from the perspective of the Black experience. And in our partnerships with Black Gotham Experience, Kamal Ware, we're really trying to expand the narrative and figure out how to scale and increase awareness of this video that we recently released. Okay, so now more onto the process of PDC. So PDC public meetings are published long before they happen. So we already have our 2023 calendar released. And in pink are all of our meeting dates, and in orange are the submission deadlines that are pertaining to the agencies that are submitting to us. So every month we have a cycle where a swath of projects are on for public hearing or on our consent agenda or on for committee to get feedback. These meetings are held in person at Public Design Commission's boardroom on the 3rd floor of City Hall, but they are also available over Zoom now for testifying. So people that would like to testify can join over Zoom and do not have to come in person. And that has really increased the number of people that testify, which is a great thing because we do want public input. Our commissioners appreciate and definitely take that into consideration. Our agendas and minutes are also posted online 3 business days in advance of each meeting, and they're also published in the city record. And these agendas are distributed to all city council members, community boards, and city agency liaisons a week prior to the public meeting. The Public Design Commission's meetings are recorded, the videos are posted online. So everything is documented in minutes, and these are our certificates of approval, and they are available typically within a week of the meeting date. And all of this then gets captured in our archive. So there's a lot of research requests that Juliana will get into later, because we are the keepers of a long history of how our public realm gets, developed and built. So it's fascinating. Okay, so public testimony. Public Design Commission meetings are held, as I said, via Zoom and in person, and members of the public can attend and give testimony either in person or remotely. For public hearings, members of the public can sign up to give testimony. There's a link to a form on our website, and they can also participate by using Zoom or their own devices. And testimony is limited to issues of design and aesthetic merit, as that is the Public Design Commission's purview. We do not have any say over the interior of the building. It's about design and aesthetic merit on the exterior, on projects on city land. And if it's on our consent agenda, typically testimony is not heard, but our agendas are published. So if you see something on the consent agenda which you want to testify on, there's always an option to notify staff via email as soon as possible. And you'll hear back from one of the staff members about the process subsequent to that request. So most cases, when a project goes through public testimony once, it doesn't typically go through it again. And the commission may vote to give final approval as long as there's been a public hearing. So then you can also submit written testimony. Meeting agendas are posted on the commission's website at least 3 business days in advance, and people are encouraged to submit written testimony in advance of the date. Staff shares all written testimony with the commissioners on the day of the meeting so they can take it into consideration while they deliberate. And most often projects can get testimony both for and against. It's really a healthy debate and dialogue prior to the vote. And spoken testimony is limited to 3 minutes in duration. So how it works is the applicant team presents the project. Then I ask if there are requests for testimony. If people are in person, they can speak for 3 minutes at a time. If they're remote, they can speak for 3 minutes at a time. And after all the testimony is over, the commissioners start asking questions about the project, taking the testimony in mind. So that's also something, if you watch our YouTube videos that are online, you can get a feel for the process. So that was about the public meetings and the way of doing public testimony. But now I want to talk a little bit about the impact of PDC review on historic districts and more. So the Landmarks Preservation Commission has binding jurisdiction over all work to individual landmarks and historic districts, with the exception of the installation or conservation of art, as well as alterations or additions to existing structures within scenic landmarks. So there's a variety of different landmark types, and I put these definitions from the LPC website because sometimes it can get a bit tricky to distinguish between these, but essentially Scenic landmarks are parks. Interior landmarks are not our jurisdiction because we don't have interior in our purview. And individual landmarks are LPC jurisdiction. For historic districts, a site or an area, such as an individual landmark, interior landmark, scenic landmark, or historic district, these are all included. And essentially, per local law in 1995, the charter was revised to outline the shared jurisdictions between LPC and the PDC with regard to these specific categories. So LPC has binding approval for individual landmarks, except for installations on new works of art or conservation of existing works of art. And PDC has binding approval and landmarks has advisory approval. So in any event where landmarks has advisory approval, they will submit a report to us, and our commissioners and staff will take that into consideration before the vote. For historic districts, new structures, add-ons to existing structures, and construction or reconstruction of works of landscape architecture in historic districts are LPC binding approval. But as I mentioned, artwork and conservation is PDC approval. Within historic districts, PDC has binding jurisdiction over prototypes. Everything else is with LPC. So scenic landmarks, we have binding jurisdiction over installations or conservation of art and construction of new structures and works of landscape architecture. So I will go through a project example to give you guys a bit more color on how this process works. So a project that came to us very impactful in December was Gate of the Exonerated. So Central Park is a scenic landmark. So PDC had binding jurisdiction over this and LPC had advisory. So before and after, as you can see, it was essentially a proposal for an inscription. And LPC submitted an advisory report to us. So the landmark preservations, when they wrote to us, they noted that this was a proposal for modifying the top course of a portion of the historic sandstone perimeter park wall adjacent to an entrance at Central Park North. And it included debossing and honing the masonry to a flat surface and inscribing Gate of the Exonerated, which will serve as the entrance name. And this was similar to precedent, and I will go through further slides. But LPC wrote to us first saying, with regard to this proposal, the commission found that the work will not eliminate any significant architectural features, that the presence of the inscribed lettering will be consistent with the historic inscribing of entrance names at sandstones adjacent to park entrances, and it's essentially in line with historic precedent. So we also get a letter, not only from LPC, but we get community board letters of support when considering the vote on projects. And with this particular project, CB10 had convened various community meetings around the effort to see the history acknowledged and permanently commemorated in the park. So often with projects that come to PDC, the community outreach has already happened, really led by the agencies, the community boards, and then there's an additional opportunity for public testimony in front of the PDC commissioners. But here, we already knew from our research and all the letters that came to us that there was a task force, there was extensive stakeholder participation, and that CB10 and the task force had embraced the naming of this entrance. So whatever testimony we received at the public hearing itself, both for and against, we had to take that, the commissioners could take that in context of all the prior engagement that had already happened. And this is the case with lots of projects where we see it at a point where agencies have led community outreach and they have letters of support, or they have to submit a letter regardless of support or not to us based on what the CB says. So PDC is one more process by which the public can testify and not the only process. So PDC Archives is a history of approvals dating back to 1869 to the original inscriptions of the gates. So whenever there's a project like this, we do a lot of archival research to just take a look at historic precedent. And for this, we even have the original drawings of the original gate inscriptions at every different opening at Central Park. So this is a map of where all the original inscriptions were. And this was the proposed inscription site for Gate of the Exonerated. These are some examples, images of the existing gates. And this was the location map for the proposed Gate of the Exonerated. And then when the agency submits to us, in this case, Central Park Conservancy, they send us the drawings, the details, and we review that. And we found that consistent with prior history and precedent. So at this time, I will hand it over to Juliana and Mary Beth, and they will talk through the City Hall tours and the archive.
Okay. Are you going to give us control of this presentation?
What you did.
I can keep going if you wish.
Okay, I'll just let you know when we'll have the next slide. Hi, I'm Mary Beth Betts, and I'm the City Hall tour manager. We currently offer 3 tours of City Hall a week, Tuesdays for groups and Wednesdays and Thursdays for individuals. For the month of April, we are only offering, because they're doing a demolition of the front steps, we're only offering tours on Wednesdays after the demolition stops. But we're almost through the month of April. Could I have the next slide, please? Okay, so City Hall was, it's New York's 3rd City Hall, and it was the result of an 1802 competition to design a new City Hall that had an award of $350, and it had 26 entries. The competition was won by 2 architects, Joseph Francois Mangin, who was a French emigre architect and engineer, and John McComb Jr. And it was originally a courthouse and a city hall. Today it is just a city hall, but it did have a jail in the basement, and now members of the mayor's staff do work there, and they're very amused to be working in the jail. City Hall was largely completed in 1812, and believe it or not, when it was completed, it was the one of the 3 tallest buildings in New York City at that time. Next slide. And when we do the tours, we start on the outside. We take people, we look at the art and the architecture of the building. We take people into the lobby and the rotunda, and then up to the governor's room and the city council chamber. This is a historic view of the governor's room from about 1831. Next. And this is the city council chamber, which was completed in 1897 when New York City became Greater New York. There was not a room big enough in City Hall to seat elected representatives from all 5 boroughs, and this was designed by John Duncan. Next. And this is the mural on the ceiling, which is currently under restoration, but you get a chance to see the whole thing, and hopefully it will be whole soon again. And I think that's it for me.
Okay.
Next.
I also, I also wanted to just say that PDC is curator and caretaker of City Hall, so that's why we are also presenting this to you. So any of the artworks that are on the walls, any future artwork to be put there, it's something that has to come through to us if it's a permanent piece of artwork. If it's temporary, under a year, it doesn't need to be voted upon. And we have been also working on conserving this mural that's on the ceiling, but had fallen down, and half of it is currently in a studio being conserved. And it's an incredible piece of work, so we're glad that project is underway. I'm handing it back to you, Juliana. I'm gonna, there we go.
Okay. You're still controlling the slides, right? Okay. I'm Juliana Monjo. I'm the archivist and records manager for the Public Design Commission. I've been here 10 years this month. It's very exciting for me. So, Sreoshy, yeah. I do need to make one quick correction. So, PDC, we've been around since 1898, not 1869. Oops. And so 1898, for any New York City buffs, you'll know that that's the year all the boroughs became one city. And when that happened, the city wanted a design agency that was going to initially look at artworks, but then eventually structures, to make, design everything cohesive in all the boroughs. So I am here to maintain all the records that have come into PDC. So, as Sreoshy mentioned, as their commissioners are reviewing projects and our staff are helping them with that, as projects are reviewed and approved or rejected once in a while, those projects then become public records. So per the charter, those records are coming to us, we're saving them, keeping them, and we're making them available to the public. Our records date back to 1902. So there's are more like official records. So applications, photographs, drawings, things like that. Those go back to 1902 and they document more than 7,500 sites throughout New York City right now. And I think it gives a pretty unique view into the city's public works through our records. So our records will largely include paper documents like applications, correspondence, drawings, photographs, other architectural plans. Sadly, no models, although I do wish we had those. And so in a lot of ways, we have a lot of old historical records here, but it's still very active. So our staff are still reviewing these records. As new projects come up, it may be from a building that is over 100 years old. And we may still have those records. As you saw before, the Gate of the Exonerated, we had those records. Those are from our archive of those original gate inscriptions. So those were able to help inform us and give some great background for us and also the Department of Parks as they're reviewing those new projects. So the PDC, in addition to just having these records and making them available to our staff and other city agencies and the public, we also offer periodic free tours. By request, any large groups, they can request me personally to give a tour, and then once in a while I'll put up a tour date on our website. And we've also done tours through the New York Adventure Club, which is a great group of people very interested in public art and design, actually. Next slide, please. Thank you. So as we said, after proposals are reviewed by PDC, they come to us. And I am always here to do research for members of the public, and that's where I think you guys may be interested in what we have. So depending on the scope, so what the theme of the projects you're looking for, how many projects you're looking for, I will do research requests either in person or digitally. So recently I had a PhD student who was here doing research on public health clinics, and she asked for quite a lot of them, so I had her come in person. We provide scans free of charge, so she was able to go through those records, pick out what she wanted scans of for her own research and possible later publication. I was able to add them to my queue to digitize. Again, we don't charge for that. I'm very happy about that. Sreoshy already kind of mentioned, you'll kind of know from what she's already talked about, the kind of records you can expect to find here. If it is or was city owned, and the project came after 1902, we should hopefully have those records. Once in a while there are gaps, depending on if they submit to us or not, but we have obviously a large store of records here for you to draw from, including parks, playgrounds, lighting, old electroliers, we have those, bike racks, anything like that, and of course art and memorials. I included a picture here in the center. If any of you've been to the Prospect Park Zoo, that is a relief of an elephant that is placed on one of their buildings, and we got to review those. And that is from 1935. Next slide, please. And here's just a little graph of just giving you the numbers of what we're getting for research. So I started in 2013. We were only getting 34 research requests. Our archive was was never private, but a little harder to find. I also am the first archivist they've ever had on staff here, records manager, to actively spend most of my time on providing these records to people. So obviously we've been able to increase our numbers, which is fantastic. And about 50 to 60% of those requests are actually coming from other city agencies who are working on their projects before they even come to us. Sometimes they're asking us what records we have. But I'm always happy to increase our numbers for outside researchers who aren't just in the city. Next slide, please. Okay, and here's a snapshot of our website. If any of you are interested in how to get to the research forum and to ask something of me. So on our website, you're going to select archive and then research. You'll see there are 3 links in the center there, and choose the research request form or submit research request. And you'll be led to a form that asks for pretty basic information about you, your contact email so I can get back to you, and a space to let me know what you're looking for. That form goes right to me into my email. And so you should expect to hear back pretty quickly from me, and, you know, give as much detail as you possibly can, but I'm always happy to help people who aren't sure what we have to look into our records and see if we can help you. Next slide, please. I've just included some pictures of what we've already digitized, what we have in our collection. You can see garbage cans are some of the things we've gotten over the years. I love this one from Staten Island. It's very explicit. And then, you know, things you know and love in the city already, like the lion outside of the main branch in the New York Public Library. We reviewed records for that. We have this lovely model of it they took a picture of just to submit to us so our commissioners could review it. Next slide, please. And I know a lot of you will probably be interested more in buildings. So I included some examples of what you might find, like public bathhouses on the left, and on the right, a public school, so Washington Irving School. And just a quick little note here about jurisdiction. You know, there are things over the years that come in and out of our jurisdiction. So very early on, we have a lot of public schools, especially the CBJ Snyder schools. But then, as you may know, I believe in the 60s, 70s, not positive exactly the years, but you know, New York City schools then came under the jurisdiction of the state, the School Construction Authority, I believe. So those, we were no longer reviewing those, but we still have those records. So there are things we may not review now, but we may have records for in the past. Next slide, although that might be my last slide, I'm not sure. That's it. All right, thank you.
That's it. Yeah. Thank you, Juliana. Thank you, Mary Beth. So yeah, I open the floor to any questions. Michelle, let me know if there's anything in the chat, or anybody if they wish to come on video. Hi.
We don't have anything in the chat yet, but yes.
Jeremy
Also,
has his hands raised.
Jeremy, have a question? Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I have actually 2 or 3 questions, but I'll start with one, and if there's time later, maybe go on to another. I just want to say as background that until a few months ago, I worked for a long period at the city's Department of Design and Construction, which, as you noted, is a big supplier of projects for your review. And before that, I worked at the Landmarks Commission. And in my role at the Landmarks Commission, I was the commission's liaison to the Public Design Commission. So my question concerns something that I'm sure you're aware of, which is that there is a proposal by the administration to create a design and construction authority at DDC. And there's a separate proposal, which has actually already been introduced as legislation to create a Department of Parks Construction Authority. And both of those proposals would eliminate PDC's review from almost all projects that those agencies undertake. In the case of the Parks Authority, it would also eliminate the Landmarks Commission's review. And it isn't clear whether the DDC authority would eliminate landmarks as well. But that would certainly lighten your workload, but it would also mean that you're not reviewing a majority of the projects that you now see, and that PDC has reviewed since 1896 or whenever it was created. So I'm wondering if you have anything to say about that, if PDC has a position, if you're trying to address this in some way.
Absolutely. And I want to just first of all thank you for your question, and also really amazed that you've had such a long history with the city. Thanks for all of your help there too. So twofold. I'll start with answering the questions about the Parks Authority. So that was flagged for me a couple of weeks ago, and I reached out to Parks, and they said that this is not something that Parks is advocating for, and that it's an old bill and it keeps coming up in the legislative process. And as I understand it, they're able to do what they wish without really having any kind of communication with the city. So the Parks Authority is not really being supported at this moment by the administration, and it isn't projected to go anywhere, is what I've heard. So that has given us some relief. For the DDC plus bill, it's actually all very live. As you know, there's been press about it, but the Public Design Commission, of course, really values the commissioner's input and is strongly behind the kind of value we provide. And while we also understand the broader goals of DDC Plus trying to streamline processes, PDC line was kind of a drop in the broader bucket of goals. But since that article came out, and since there's been a lot of communication between our commissioners and also Commissioner Foley of DDC, I think we're in a place where we are optimistic that regardless of what happens with the legislation, that it is not going to altogether avoid PDC jurisdiction, but that we will work on a separate understanding of how we can streamline our process with an inclusive kind of subcommittee via DDC members as well as members of our commission. So we're working on a working group to come up with ways to address issues that might be prompting this type of effort, and see if we can address it in a way that doesn't take away our jurisdiction, but allows us to tweak our processes and our procedures so we can make things in a streamlined way, but not necessarily take it out of the realm of, like, you know, what our jurisdiction is now. So none of this, of course, has been finalized, but it is also being discussed, and I'm optimistic that we're in a place where we can collaboratively work with our commissioners and streamline and keep our important purview over these projects.
Okay, thank you very much.
Anybody else?
Hi there. I'm with a nonprofit organization that's working on a project that would be located in historic districts. So I already learned a lot from this presentation about where I'd go with that. But I was really curious, you know, with the Gate of the Exonerated, that knowing that Central Park Conservancy was the one who sort of spearheaded that. In terms of moving our project to the next level, would you recommend working with city council, community boards as a way to sort of get that up the chain? I'm just curious how agencies come to some of these proposals that they get that then they later provide to either you or LPC.
That's a great question. And I think in this particular effort, you mentioned that it's located within a historic district. So is it a scenic landmark?
No, it's in Greenwich Village, near Stonewall National Monument.
I see. So in that case, you have to, first of all, identify who has jurisdiction over it. If it's a sidewalk, if it's in the right of way, if it's DOT, or if it's a park, then it's parks. But you have to identify the agency. And on our website, we also have agency liaisons linked. So there's an email address. You can reach out to them for understanding the process before it comes to PDC. And they're really helpful and collaborative with us. So I would suggest that, but also I've been here for 10 months and Juliana for 10 years. So I want to have you take a pass at that question.
I think you got everything there. Yeah, you know, I think our liaisons are a great resource. If you think this would fall under PDC jurisdiction, I know they're very willing to dialogue with you directly about it to make sure you're steered in the right direction. And also they'll probably help you with information about if you're going to go to community boards, help walk you through that process as well.
Great, thank you.
If
I had a
oh, go ahead.
question.
Yeah,
You had one of the images, and there were a bunch of acronyms like MOS, SEA. Can you just go through what each of them are?
Was this, tell me when to stop, because there are acronyms everywhere.
I know.
I understand that the agencies are an alphabet soup of a lot of confusing.
It was it's one of the earlier ones, like a streetscape one.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. I know which one you're referring to. Almost there. Okay, this one,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yes. So I can go through this. So essentially, this is a typical street and what constitutes the kind of environment that affects the street and right of way. So DOT, Department of Transportation, is the owner of the street itself, the sidewalk, and also currently being worked on the open restaurants permanent program, because that would be within the roadbed seasonally and in the sidewalk, potentially. And then Parks, of course, has jurisdiction over any park spaces along the block with direct adjacency onto the sidewalk. HPD is Housing Preservation Department. And of course, Juliana, if I say something that's please correct me. So HPD has jurisdiction over housing. DOE is Department of Education. This, I think, in this diagram is a school. SCA is School Construction Authority, which handles schools now because they have jurisdiction over it. DDC is being pointed to here because they, I believe, may have been in charge of building this building. And, at the time had submitted to PDC about, all the different aspects of the threshold between the interior and the exterior, which is PDC purview. DCP is Department of City Planning. SBS is Small Business Services. And DEP is Department of Environmental Protection. And this is pointing to all the infrastructure underground. EDC is New York City Economic Development Corporation. And DOH is Department of Health. What is MOS, Juliana?
I'm not, I've been here a long time.
We are.
Acronyms, I'm not sure about that one.
Yeah.
That threw me off.
But really, every street has a multitude of agencies that originally had any impact in the planning or any role in the planning of the street. So us over here, we see projects coming in from multiple parties. So EDC could submit streetscape improvements because they're the ones who are handling the project with a bid, but DOT could also submit similar because they're the ones handling it. So oftentimes this alphabet soup of agencies, they submit things to us of similar typologies, but it varies based on ownership. I hope that answers your question.
It did, thank you. Someone wrote in the chat, MOS, Mayor's Office of Sustainability.
Ah, that was my guess. Thank you.
And also Office of, Environmental Remediation. See, we got there. Teamwork.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any other questions?
Jeremy, you had mentioned you had a few others. I'm happy to take them.
Well, yes, the main one has to do with scenic landmarks. And it may be a little involved. If I'm going on too long, please stop me. But one of the other things I used to do at the Landmarks Commission was I was responsible for the scenic landmark review process. And at that time, the process was the same as it is now. Both agencies had jurisdiction, with PDC being binding and landmarks being advisory. But the Landmarks Commission used to take a much more serious role in reviewing scenic landmarks, in that when they reviewed a project, if they thought it was not good or not appropriate, they would send the Parks Department back to redesign it. So essentially nothing ever got to PDC that the Landmarks Commission didn't find was appropriate. And then I would actually appear at PDC and explain the commission's thinking about why they thought this was a good project. But what the Landmarks Commission does now is they will, even if they find that there are problems with the design, say a landscape design or new building design, they won't ask the Parks Department to revise it. They'll just send it on, they'll write a report and send it over to PDC. And maybe we'll summarize some of their thinking, but it's certainly not in any great detail. And that leaves PDC with the job of kind of passing judgment on historic preservation for scenic landmarks, which PDC really is not, that's not your mandate, as I understand it. And you don't actually have commissioners who are historians or, you know, historic landscape architects. You don't have staff that specialize in those things. So I'm just wondering how you approach those kinds of projects when there may be a hint that the Landmarks Commission thought there were problems, but the Parks Department is presenting it to you anyway. And do you think there might be a way to kind of strengthen the way these projects are reviewed? Because I'm worried that they are kind of being given second-class status now, and that Landmarks doesn't seem to take them seriously, and then PDC has to review them without really being the agency that's tasked with that kind of jurisdiction or that kind of, you know, expertise.
That is a really interesting.
Probably more of a comment than a question.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly something that perhaps I haven't faced as much in my tenure here, but recently we are very actively reviewing a project which has LPC as advisory, and Parks submitted to us, and they were still waiting for the LPC report, and we insisted that we get that report first before we put it on officially in front of our commissioners, because we certainly value the input and need it to, you know, ensure that everybody is aligned. We also have a good collaborative relationship with LPC, and you know, sometimes we just they're a phone call away, so that is something that, you know, we can do if we have outstanding questions. Juliana, did you have any more thoughts or? Yeah.
Thank you. If no one has any other questions, I think it's just about 6 o'clock now. But thank you all very much. This was fantastic. As you can all see, and as I mentioned, it has been recorded, so it will be available on our YouTube channel probably next week. And again, as I mentioned, all of our other previous preservation schools are also available on our YouTube channel, in addition to our virtual walking tour. So please do go check those out. And yes, again, thank you very much. And we will speak to everyone soon.
Thank you so much for having us. Thanks
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.